Welcome to Trinity Place in Geneva, New York. My name is Cameron Miller, and this is a reflection for the seventh Sunday of Easter, the last Sunday of Easter season this year. It's not so much a reflection on the readings, however, for this week in the lectionaries. In fact, I'm not even sure you could call this a sermon, but I'll let you be the judge of that. I did wait until I was off the pain medications from surgery to work on it. There's always a riptide of temptation to allow the sermon to be used in the service of commentary on something that has just happened. The shooting in Buffalo, for example, to which there were personal connections for me and my family. Clearly, the war in Ukraine, which rocked the world as it began and continues to rock the world even now, to seem like something that should be mentioned or discussed in a sermon. And of course, this past week in Texas, when a lone teenager wiped out a classroom, teachers and students alike, as if he were trying to erase his own painful memories of childhood that hurt too much. When it comes to senseless gun violence and the easy accessibility of weapons of war, every Sunday could be a sermon condemning or mourning or advocating gun regulation. Whether the shootings were by a deranged loner, a deranged racist, a deranged political militant, they are as numerous as the reading set out by the Sunday lectionary. As a preacher, I restrain myself when it comes to making commentary on immediate events. Even after 9/11, for example, I refrained from preaching on it and simply included it in the prayers of the people, and then the following Sunday night held a vigil dedicated to the victims of 9/11 and all victims of war. There were people in my congregation incensed that I didn't rail against the terrorists in a sermon, but I do not think that enhances the credibility of the pulpit, nor what Sunday morning is for. And just like today, Memorial Day weekend is a national holiday in which to mourn the nation's war dead, for us, Christians with a spiritual nationality that spans every border of the globe, it's also a day to remember all victims of war everywhere. I am shy about preaching on or against or for any sudden events because I do not trust that I or we ever have enough information to know with any kind of certainty what should be said when claiming to speak in the voice of the Spirit of God. I do not know any more than you know about the events we are most horrified by and to which we are convinced we know a solution. So why should I risk the credibility of the pulpits to pontificate on what I know I do not know? Cry out, yes. Cry out. Join the chorus of painful rage, yes. Ask God why babies and bystanders and innocents who never asked for war or absurd gun rights or invited violence in any way are so easily eliminated. Yes, ask God and even curse God for these flagrant injustices. But no, not preach about events so present and hot that we are all torn apart by and we are all torn apart by different reactions. I choose almost all the time to wait in such situations, to see where the voice of God and the presence of the spirits make themselves known. In short, in preaching, I am always behind the media and the 24/7 cycle of loud, crashing events. I mention this because you may wonder or be disappointed that I do not do more condemning or proclaiming about the events of the world bearing down upon us each week. I mention them as a means of acknowledging their presence and that we are filled with emotion about them, but rarely do I make a current event the centerpiece of a sermon. What I try to do instead is to offer up a biblical lens or theological lens through which to view events of the world around us. I mean, there are political and economic and psychological commentary aplenty, and they have the loudest bullhorns and when it comes to telling us how to think or perceive or believe about current events. I figure there ought to be some place to go to try on a different lens and to wonder out loud about what's going on and why. As for that lens, by now you know I am a fan of the man whose name was Jesus, who pointed to our challenge to create the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. That is the particular lens, the kind of lens. And it carries with it a whole bunch of assumptions about how to create that kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. It also begins with the assumption that it is possible. It is possible for us to create the reign of God on earth in this earthen sphere at the tail end of the Milky Way. If we begin with the assumption that it is possible for human beings to create a commonwealth of community on earth as beautiful as the one we imagine in heaven, and then add to it the assumption that it is our task to help create that realm, well then just that assumption will lead us to all kinds of particular political, economic, and lifestyle choices. Conversely, if we begin with a different assumption as our bedrock, they will lead us to other choices. If supremacy of any particular nation is our bedrock assumption, that leads us to specific choices about citizenship and nationalism. If the supremacy of our race, of our particular race, is our bedrock assumption, that will lead us to specific choices about oppressing or eliminating other races. If the Second Amendment is our primary allegiance, that will lead us to specific choices regarding the accessibility of guns. But if Jesus, who says that we can and must create a kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, is our bedrock assumption, then that will change the calculus of our lives. That'll change the choices we make. That'll change the economic choices we make, the political choices we make, the relationships we own, the whole calculus of our choices. So while I am as opinionated as the next person about politics, economics, and social commentary on the access to gun or climate change or critical race theory, I struggle to keep our primary lens, at least of this pulpit, as one that assumes God's kingdom on earth as it is in heaven is ours to create. Our primary lens determines the assumptions we make. Our primary lens determines the assumption we begin with. And from there, we are led to specific values, beliefs, hopes, and choices. So you see, it really matters what our primary assumptions are, because they shape the lens through which we view all of life. And most of us, I dare say most of the time, walk around without awareness or self-consciousness of our bedrock choices. And a lack of self-awareness about our assumptions can cause us to make choices and set priorities and actually go against what we think our true bedrock values are. But here, from this pulpit, from this preacher, all assumptions begin with Jesus, who said, we can create a commonwealth of community on earth as it is in heaven. And he said, that is our task. May you find and may you own and may you make peace where you are with those with whom you live and work and play.